Hey everyone, it's Nicole from Wiki. We're going to do a quick BBL preview this morning of the first game of the BBL finals, and we've got AAP sports journalist Scott Bailey with us. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
G'day, Nicole. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. I've got about 20 minutes with you before you've got to head off here and do a lot more important things with obviously the test match starting in the next little bit. But let's get on to the BBL finals first. Obviously, there's been, before we get into the games, we're just having a quick chat just before we start recording about few of the internationals that are having to go off the SA20, the ILT20, etc. I guess look, I've got a couple of my own opinions on it, but I'll head over to you first in terms of covering off what your thoughts are on the guys that unfortunately have to leave just before the finals.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I don't think the BBL's alone in this in terms of world cricket. Like, there's so many franchise leagues going on at the moment. I think there's four going on at the moment with the
It's four or
BBL.
five, yeah.
Yeah, ILT20, the South Africa one, the Bangladesh one,
Super
um,
Smash as well.
Super Smash. Yeah, that's right. There's five going on at
Yeah.
the moment around the world. So, in terms of a cluttered schedule, this is probably one of the more cluttered, or if not the most cluttered time of the year. Uh, you know, Cricket Australia, little bit of criticism in the last few days for the fact that they lose these star imports for the finals. But to be fair to them, there's not a stack that can be done in some ways. Like, this is just the nature of cricket these days. I know that they will, in the next little period, try and meet with the clubs, come up with some solutions or potential solutions in terms of ways they can incentivize players to stay for finals. They certainly don't want to have this situation going forward where I think of the nine overseas players that were left in the competition, say a week ago, there's only going to be three left for the finals with six going. Um, in terms of what can be done, I think Sam Billings made a good point on social media earlier this week, where realistically, a lack of security for overseas players is a bit of an issue because when they are negotiating deals with, say, an ILT20 club, who we can't forget are also there a lot of times the same employers who pay them squillions of dollars to play in the IPL, and also the money in the ILT20 is pretty significant. They don't always know at that point if they are going to have a big bash deal just because of the
Yep.
nature of the draft system. So what Cricket Australia can do about it is an interesting one. I don't know that there's an exact answer yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if one idea that came up was potentially having more security around contracts and multi-year contracts for players who are picked in the draft. Obviously, we have the retention system in the BBL draft, and that can be activated once a rival club tries to pick up your player. But I guess one solution could be if for argument's sake, Sam Billings or Colin Munro was the Heat's retention pick or the gold or platinum pick, they could maybe enact that retention well in
Yep.
advance. So that way, Sam Billings, for instance, knew that next year he will be playing in the Big Bash League with the Brisbane Heat. He has a guaranteed contract there. And when it comes to negotiating an arrival date with his ILT20 club, he could say, look, if the Heat make the finals, I won't be there until January 26th, for argument's sake.
Yep.
Whether that would work is another story because I think, you know, it would be pretty fair for Australia to say, are we certain that will work when, as we touched on, the money that's available in the ILT20 and obviously, like I said, the same employers a lot of the times that are IPL clubs. So an interesting one. I don't know that's probably one solution for Cricket Australia. I think they'll talk with the clubs about it, whether they then made it, for players to have these deals, multi-year deals, whether they then said, well, if that's the case, you have to prioritize the BBL. I don't know how they go
Mm.
about that, but it's an option. I think it's something the Cricket Australia definitely want to sort. But my gut feel is getting it sorted is going to be easier said than done.
Yep, and I think I'll just give you the perspective, I guess, outside of Australia. I'm a massive cricket nuffy, follow cricket all around the world. I think the other challenge is that you mentioned these other tournaments. There's also issues with obviously the links with IPL teams, obviously a lot more money around in those competitions, and it's also the fact that it's not like the scheduling is set that it will be these dates pretty much every year. You got to remember that the SA20 and the ILT20 both started pretty much this time last year,
Mm.
and even the other comps like they do move sort of like a couple of weeks either way. And then the other thing I've been trying to stick up for CA a little bit in some of the sort of communities that I'm in, and chatting to sort of cricket fans, is that you got to remember there's a few different things to worry about. There's the Test cricketers having to weigh up, do they keep playing red ball cricket? Obviously, the
Mm.
guys that are 30 plus now for Australia, they've been legends of the game and they will do that. But the guys like Will Sutherland, for example, like the guys in their early to mid 20s, how do they prioritize white ball v red ball? And then there's the other challenge of CA prioritizing the BBL as a competition to have kids and families interested in cricket. I guess one thing that people outside of Australia maybe don't realize is the battle for young talent. Your 17-year-old star that's up and coming, you're often fighting with AFL, you're often fighting with NRL and a bunch of different sports. So there's just so much complexity, and the commercial reasoning around school holidays, Christmas, when do you play your BBL games, when do you play your BBL finals, except the TV rights, you could go on and on. So before we go maybe I'll let you finish up on that, and we'll get into the actual games.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think where Australia is different to a lot of other nations still is that Test cricket is still not only the priority for Cricket Australia, but it's also the priority for the majority of the Australian public. Whereas that's not necessarily the case worldwide. Like Test cricket makes up a significant portion. Like I haven't got the exact figure, but an absolutely significant portion of the TV rights still. So the crowds for Test cricket are still so high in Australia. Like that's just not the case overseas for a lot of nations, right? So the Big Bash isn't it's a priority, but it's not the same priority that obviously we've seen this situation there, say 20 competition and what's happened over there with the tour in New Zealand and whatnot. So Cricket Australia is in a very different spot to a lot of other leagues. I know that doesn't necessarily affect player availability, but it does affect in terms of the schedule, the BBL, and when they can play the games. And obviously this summer having the gap in their building for the Perth test, they won't have that for the next 2 summers. So that will make the BBL slightly more compressed. Probably looking at more of it'll be a week shorter than what it was this year. So this year what was this year? 6.5 week competition?
No, I think it was a bit shorter. It started around December 7th, maybe, and it's ending up just before. You're right, actually.
Yeah, 6.5.
Right,
So I think
6 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, next year will be say 5.5, which will again make it a little bit easier. But the reality is the issue for the BBL isn't getting the players at the start of the tournament. They can get them then. It's keeping them at the end. And there's no world in which the BBL finishes earlier than the end of the school holidays, because they're not going to finish the BBL on January 19th, for argument's sake, and then leave the back end of January completely open with no international cricket next summer.
Yep. No, look, an interesting topic, and definitely one it's going to be really interesting to see how we go this time in 12 months, right? I think the only positive I can think of is the fact that like every year that goes on, the other competitions are a little bit more settled, and maybe there's a chance for the CA to sort of reach out to them to get a little bit more clarity about what's going on, and therefore structure the draft timing accordingly. But hopefully it all settles down in the next 12 months or so. No, awesome. Look, we'll get into the games real quickly. So there's obviously the 2 games that are locked in now for tonight, Friday, the 19th of January. We've got the Heat v the Sixers, and then tomorrow, on the Saturday, we've got the Scorchers v the Strikers. We'll get into the Heat and Sixers. I'm going to assume that it's not going to be rain affected, although it's been raining nonstop on the Gold Coast since yesterday, and it's meant to rain again today. But let's assume for now it's not raining. Played at Carrara Oval. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it's we talk about teams losing players. There's obviously the Heat as an impact as anyone for that. I mean, that they've been dealt a pretty raw deal. And to be fair, it's not anyone's fault. Firstly, they going on the topic of guys leaving clubs, like the Heat when they did their draft picks knew that they were going to lose Billings and Munro. So clubs have prioritised making the finals because get there first to worry about it later. And that's a fair approach, because you need to get the best team you can to get into this position. They're in coming first for the first time, etc. So, but they're obviously very, very heavily impacted, and not just losing those guys. I know they get Matt Renshaw back, but the Heat have had. I mean, they got Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne back for 2 games. Not that they're necessarily part of their team, but the problem they've got, I guess, is that the next guys in their squad are also unavailable, if you know what I mean, in terms of if you would imagine Marnus Labuschagne and Usman Khawaja as the next, as members of their squad, 12 and 13, so to speak. So they're obviously pretty impacted in that fashion. Not playing at the Gabba, also lose home ground advantage. That's just bad luck, I guess, with the way the test match and the schedule is. So, from that perspective, I think the Heat, have got a bit of a tough ask ahead of them tonight. The Sixers, on the other hand, trying to work out what they'll do with their team. They've got 2 options. They can either go Curtis Patterson in after he was dropped pretty early on in the tournament with James Vince out. That's it. James Vince is a blow for them. Like, he's obviously scored runs in finals before, but I don't think it's as much of a hit as what the Heat have taken. And also, the other option would be for him to bring Joel Davies in and have an extra spinner and leave Patterson out. But I think that might be more the case when they come back to the SCG, either for the or the final next week. I think the crucial thing for me is that the Sixers bowling is not impacted by this. Obviously, they lost Curran a while ago. Their bowling is so good that I don't think there's a team in the BBL who are better at defending scores of 150, 151. It's uncanny how often in their games there is a score of 151 made. So for mine, I think the Sixers look pretty good tonight if they get on the field. That's the
Yep.
key.
Yep, just my 2 cents on that. I remember, well, yeah, James Vince is missing for the Sixers, and as you mentioned, Munro and Billings for the Heat. I think the big one for the Heat is I had to think about who would be like what their batting order would look like, and I think it would
Mm.
be Pearson and Josh Brown with who are we going to say? McSweeney, Renshaw, Max Bryant, and then Nisa and Tall Paul Walter. So
Yes.
that top seven, without being disrespectful to any of those guys, obviously you take Munro, Billings, Marnus, and Uzi Khawaja out of there. That is a pretty big shift. So I think if there is rain around and it is rain affected, it might actually help the Heat. Might be
Yeah.
a little bit of a smash and bash sort of 12, 14 over game, whatever it is, if they can get on. And obviously, if they don't, then the Heat make it straight through to the BBL final. I would have, I assume that's
Yeah,
right.
correct.
Top,
That's the
yeah,
rules. Yeah.
sweet.
So, and
Yeah.
obviously
So
that's a big advantage because, and obviously it's a big advantage to be able to go straight through if it's washed out. But especially when you consider, I think most people are looking at this competition now with the teams that are left on paper and thinking that the Sixers and Scorchers are the two teams to beat, which is again rough on the Heat when you consider they were very close to becoming the first team to go through a season undefeated. Interesting point you make about the Heat side and what the outs mean for their top order and middle order. I mean, the side that they ran out against Perth last week is essentially the side they'll run out tonight, as you sort of ran through it then. They're all out for 128. Obviously, the Scorchers are a great attack and whatnot, but on a pitch where the Scorchers got to 163, courtesy of that late hitting by Laurie Evans,
yep.
that sort of shows, I think, where the Heat's batting is at now without those guys. So, yeah, but you're right, a shorter game all of a sudden it might swing it back at least to a 50-50 contest.
Yep. And I was just going to mention really quickly, we did a bit of analysis yesterday because on Carrara on the Gold Coast, I think we found there was 10 games from 2020 onwards that have been played there in the Big Bash, and we did a bit of analysis on spin v pace, average and strike rates for bowlers, and it's the second worst ground in Australia for spin bowling, just behind Optus Stadium. So it tells you that, yeah, when we did that analysis, like a lot of we were just trying to find outliers. Obviously they have like an attention grabbing headline or whatever, and we just couldn't bloody find any outliers. But the one thing we did find was that it is a graveyard for spin bowlers. As I said, like Optus Stadium would be the closest comparison for spinners. So I highly doubt they're going to go Stephen O'Keefe, Todd Murphy, and Joel Davies, like on a rain-affected pitch on a ground that doesn't suit spin anyway. So that takes Joel Davies pretty much out of contention for me, which would mean that, yeah, Curtis Patterson likely gets a gig. And it also means there's a chance of one of Murphy and Stephen O'Keefe not playing, especially if it's rain affected. You don't really want a 38, 39-year-old Stephen O'Keefe running around on a wet ground. You probably want someone a bit more athletic. That's my 2 cents on it. And I think if that is the case, it'll mean that I think, yeah, all things being equal, I would have said, yeah, Sixers are actually a great shot at the title now. They get a weakened Heat team, go straight to the SCG for the final if they do win. And then, yeah, they only lose one player. Whereas I'll get on to the next game very quickly. Scorchers and Strikers is really interesting because I thought the Strikers were only losing Lynn. Like I thought that was it. And then I realized, they're also losing Overton and Adam Cruz as well. So that's 3 huge outs. That's 3 of their top 6 in their batting order that they're losing. And then I thought, Scorchers are up the stadium. But then I realized Eskenazi had done his finger. He's highly unlikely to be playing. I don't know if he's officially out, but I assume he's not playing the way he looked batting the other day. And they're also obviously losing Laurie Evans and Crawley, and they're already missing Jai Richardson.
Yeah.
So I think the easy thing to say is, Scorchers are off the stadium. The Strikers are missing a few players. But I think that game, the way that I was kind of treating it is with a few outs on either side, I think that makes it a bit more susceptible to a match short special. So obviously I still think the Scorchers are the better team, 1 to 11. But I think because both teams are weaker on a relatively flat and true deck, I reckon it could actually bring out and also the way Jake Weatherald's batted, it's just been out of this world, like the most unexpected comeback in recent BBL history.
I've got to tell you, I was having this conversation with someone the other day. Jake Weatherald is my guy that I will never stop believing in, even though it's become so blatantly obvious I should just stop believing in him. Like every time I think, man, because I remember like one of the first games I covered for AAP was a Shield match, a Shield final at Glenelg, and Weatherald hit runs opening, and I was like, this kid is going to be so good. I love him. He cuts the ball so well, and like for years I've just been like, where is this kid? What has happened to him? Remember when they won the comp, he batted really well, and I was like, there he is, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And all of a sudden this season, I'm like, he's back. This is why. Anyway,
I've got to say his batting has been stunning because yeah, obviously I remember like 5, 6 years ago he was great. You know, the Darcy short times, and the game that he did really well. I think it was the Hurricanes, and it was like somewhat close. Like it wasn't a fait accompli that they were going to win. And I was chatting to the guys in our sort of Discord and Facebook groups and stuff, just talking about Super Coach or whatever. And before I know it, I look up and the game's over.
yeah.
It's like, what the hell just happened? Like I was watching individual shots thinking, geez, he's creaming it. And before you know it, he just finished the game, just 4s and 6s at the short square boundaries at the Adelaide Oval. But what's your take on the Scorchers v Strikers?
Yeah, it's a good point you make because you're right. Like your natural instinct is just to say Scorchers. They're the better team. They are. It's so hard to beat at home. We saw the other night what it takes for a side to beat them at home. But with the guys they have out and with the guys the strikers have out, it kind of takes form and reputation out of the equation a little bit. And it does allow for, I would argue that the strikers side actually they have more guys who can win a game off their own bat than what the Scorchers probably do. Like you mentioned the match short, even a Darcy short if he goes off Jake Weatherald, like they've got guys who can take a game away from the opposition really quickly, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. Like it was actually, I found it quite surprising that the position that the strikers found themselves in halfway through this competition were they actually there to go on a run to make the finals because in mine they are in the best 4 teams in this competition by some margin. Obviously started pretty poorly and had some bad luck of washed out games and whatnot. So they aren't as strong as the Scorchers on paper, but they have game breakers who can win it for them tomorrow night. That potentially the Scorchers still have game breakers. They've got Aaron Hardy in great
Josh
form.
Inglis as well.
Josh Inglis as well, obviously. So, 3 and 4 for those two. They can also take a game away really quickly. You mentioned, obviously, they lose a bit from their bowling attack with no Try Richardson, but their bowling attack is still so strong. I mean, Ashton Agar isn't as effective there as he is on other grounds because, as you mentioned, it's not the most spin-conducive ground in the country. But you're right, this is a much harder game to predict than what it was. I'm just trying to run through in my mind what the Scorchers batting order is actually going to look like. So, because obviously, with no, if Eskinar's out,
there's Whiteman and Marcus Harris, who they've just signed.
Oh, that's right. They
and
signed
then you've
him
got
as a yes.
Yeah, so you got Hardy and Inglis, and the other one I forgot about is not only missing Laurie Evans, but you're also missing Ashton Turner. So I think Turner and Jai Richardson are the two that like a lot of people, it's easy to forget, because they've been around or they've missed. Turner's missed most of the season. Jai Richardson wasn't great, and then he's missed the last couple of games. So I think that's their batting order. They're really missing a lot of punch. And I think you've got Hobson and Connolly at 6 and 7, Connolly and Hobson 6 and 7, and you're really depending on them to again show up for you, unless obviously Aaron Hardy goes nuts or Josh Inglis goes nuts, and one of them get like a 60, 70 odd, and then that's fine. Like you're the cream rises to the top. But that's why I was kind of saying that Matt Short, like it's really set up for if the Scorchers had their sort of expected 11 without the injuries and etc. Like it almost kind of nullifies fine, Matt Short could go on a tear, but the Scorchers just have so many ways of winning this game. And even with the bowling attack, like you've got AJ Ty and like Lance Morris as well. Like he's gotten quite a few wickets this year, and he looks a better bowler, but he's not scaring anyone, right? Like it's not like Matt Short's gonna be like, oh no, Lance Morris, like as the headlines would suggest.
I still think the Scorchers attack has the Strikers attack covered by
yes, definitely. Like
their attack is so good, and like you take even taking Agar out of the equation because I don't think he is, as I mentioned, anywhere near the player in Perth he is over this side of the country. But the experience of AJ's high, I think that's really important come finals matches. Berendorf's had a good BBL. Lance Morris, as you say, is not scaring guys, but he's still an extremely good. Like there's not many.
He's doing well.
Like the problem I think when teams come up against the Scorchers is like there's not really bowlers you can target and go after. Whereas I think most other sides have guys that you can look at and go, he's the guy we're going to take at 10 and over tonight. Whereas against the Scorchers, I guess you can try and go after Ashnagar, Cooper Conley, maybe inexperienced, but like they haven't got. There's just not guys that you go, yep, we're going to go after him. And Aaron Hardy's like, I know every now and then he's got a bit of tap this summer, but he's still. I think
Bowled
I'd
really
take.
well the last game. Yeah, the last two games he's bowled one of the last two overs, and he had great figures. Great figures in the last game up until Mo
Yeah,
Enriquez, I think, hit him for six to pretty
yeah,
much win the game.
that's
Yeah,
it. But it's not like he's not a guy. If Aaron Hardy's your guy that you're targeting to go 10, 12 and over off,
yep.
um, like he's a lot harder of a bowler to target than a lot of other guys that you put your 10 or 12 and over guys in other clubs. So I think as far as that goes
Yep.
in terms of matchups, like the Scorchers attack is I think far superior to anyone else. Maybe bar the Sixers, because again, the Sixers are the club that can defend scores of 150 or so. But um, for that reason, I still slightly lean towards the Scorchers. But realistically, I think this is a battle between Darcy Short, Matt Short versus Aaron Hardy and Josh Inglis. And whoever
Yep.
comes out on top, like if one of those four has a game-breaking knock and the other
Yeah, true.
and the other two don't, then I think that side wins.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I know we've got to head off in a couple of minutes, so I'll just very quickly go to our predictions. Just very quickly, guys, if you're checking this out, Google Wiki Linktree, the podcast that we're doing now. We've got finals preview analysis, the stuff that I mentioned around Carrara Oval, and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you are interested in cricket overseas as well, we are going to start doing podcasts for major test series, but also match simulators for the ILT20 and all the rest of it. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up. It's all free to check out. I'll do my predictions to not put you under the pump really quickly, and then I'll get to you and we'll wrap up. So I'm going to go against the grain as I usually try to do. So I did think the Sixers were clearly the better team with the rain around and the possibility that Heat could just make it through, or a shortened game where I'm going to back the Heat in. I'll go Heat. All sense tells me to pick the Scorchers, but for just a little bit of fun and potentially another match short special, I'm going to go the Strikers. So I'll go against the grain. So that would make it the Sixers play the Strikers. I won't be silly. I do think the Sixers are the better team. So I'll go Heat v Sixers at Carrara Oval in the final. And as we've just talked about, graveyard for spinners. Wait, does that make sense? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Yeah.
Heat v Sixers at Carrara, as we've just said, doesn't suit the spinners. Oh, if I'm going to be sensible, I'll have to say the Sixers win another BBL title. But that's my run through. I've just got the little fixtures in front of me. How do you think the finals will play out?
Oh, actually, as we were chatting, a mate has just messaged me who lives on the Gold Coast and says it looks sunny for the first time in 4 days up here. So
Ooh.
that doesn't mean much. It could also pour down rain in about 2 hours as someone who lived briefly on the Gold Coast. But I am going to go with the Sixers if they get on the field, and I know that's a big if. I just again I keep coming back to it. The Sixers bowling, their ability to defend scores of 150, I think is so strong. I can't see that Heat line up putting on a big score of 170, 180 against them. So I'll go the Sixers win tonight. I think you've actually talked me into the Strikers over the Scorchers, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but you know what? I'll also go the rough with the Strikers beating the Scorchers. That then gives us the Heat against the Strikers on
At
Monday night
Carrara.
at Carrara. I will go the Strikers again. I'll go the Heat at the straight
We
sets, which gives us the Sixers against the Strikers at the SCG on Wednesday night, next Wednesday. And I think the Sixers win it there, to be honest. I
Yep.
just think that the SCG a lower scoring ground, but the Sixers are turning into their graveyard, winning those tight kind of games. I know, and they did that against the Strikers early on in this season. So the Sixers win the title for mine.
Yep, and I think the way that yours turned out is if the final is at the SCG, it really does bring Stephen O'Keefe and Todd Murphy into the game a lot more as well. But yeah, I think we've both got the Sixers winning. Anyway, Scott, it was good fun chatting all things cricket. Enjoy the coverage of the test. I think Australia's probably going to wrap it up before lunchtime if things go their way. So if you are watching this, it's probably happened already. But if you are watching this, enjoy the finals. Google Wiki Linktree to check out our stuff. And Scott, if you obviously you cover cricket and rugby league, so we'll definitely be chatting to you at some point later this year as well.
We'll definitely chat again, mate, for sure.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.